DevOps man, the superhero. Sorry, my shoelace. Now, well, sorry? Yes. Now, let's go on. Just a moment. Well, this is the channel of our community. Please join. Pussy Dev. I am Sergei Zadorozhny. I am in Center Invent Bank for 13 or 14 years. I cannot calculate it correctly. I love advanced technologies, good music, and jokes. In DevOps, different people arrive. Some people come from development, some from administration. I am from the left. From Dev, you will have a lot of personal things in the presentation, but all the coincidences are casual. Before 2013, Docker was me, a person in the port. After 2013, Docker is a container. Docker. It was very difficult to find a job for Dockers. Docker, DevOps, well, Docker became a mainstream, and DevOps became a DevOps. Now we learned Docker, we played with Docker and Deva, we played with Kubernetes in the same way, and we proved to operations that Docker is necessary. It's not a cargo cult. It's a good tool. How do we prove it to operation? We come to administrator and say, this is all obsolete. Other people have Docker. Read the book. Read books. You are all retrogrades. Well, where is my laser? We'll cut you off. No, nobody does it. That's bad. Never do that. Come to admins, drink tea, sit down, talk, carry out meetups and trainings, say that Docker is fine, that it is necessary, it can solve your problem, it's your brother, that it gives you one form factor, everything will be simple to deploy, Java, C#, .NET, everything will be the same in a container, universal delivery, convenient API, so large ecosystem. After that, you see partial Dockerization. So when people are not against, they installed some of them, and we are here. Next stages, we have to prove to security people that this is secure, and here we have a problem. If you have to prove to security people that something is secure, then we have a problem. You have a problem. You need a security person. What do we have to do? To find another security man? You are laughing. It's very difficult. So we have to find him, you have to join him, to integrate him in the company. You have to certify him. It's an agony. It takes a lot of time. It's a bad option. Call a consultancy. People come, you will have to pay them a lot of money. They say do good things, don't do bad things. Call DevSecOps. DevSecOps, not an easy thing to do. There are rare people who have only one person here who raised his hand. All of them are in Netflix, in Google, in Positive Technologies. They're all having their good jobs. It's difficult. And become a DevSecOps yourself. DevSecOps, it's a misprint. Doesn't matter. This is our choice. And season 1, we have to prove to security people, you call to go to security and prove that Docker is necessary. How? We say that it reduces the attack surface, it's easier to scan vulnerabilities, it's easier to refresh containers, they use native capabilities of Linux. You can just take a basic image and correct it. It's not a difficult thing. It uses native Linux. It's a well-tested technology. You show presentations. You say that the attack surface can be smaller, containers are not going to affect each other, native capabilities of Linux, namespaces, proven technologies, Technology Radar in 2016, everything was fine. Many people use it. Docker is a popular technology. What do the security people say in reply? No. They say no. No. We would like this answer. It's our dream. But they can give you any kind of arguments that the containers can produce you some grown-up vegetables, vulnerabilities. I don't like it at all. It's good the way it is, or just it's another argument. But DevSecOps is a superhero. Instead of capabilities, he has super capabilities. First of all, it's soft skills. For DevOps, he must share knowledge, promote, talk, not just be friendly. With security, you will find the people, the followers, the people who will help you. DevSecOps needs a lot of things to do. He will clear up everything. He will go inside any technologies, and if he knows everything, he can kill all the fears. If there are some concerns, he can eliminate all of them. And also, patience, and again, patience, and more patience. These are the main super skills. Of course, you can fire all the security people, but it doesn't work. This is bad. I don't agree. Then, season 2. We go into the guts. Think as a security person, speak as a security person. In the internet, there is an article, I don't remember the author, how to raise the privilege level in Shell. Let's look at this example. For example, I have a local thing, I launch an image, it was prepared well in advance with a script which gives the shell with sweet bit, which raises your privilege level. I did it at 3 a.m., so it's a bit slow. Please wait a bit. I do it locally. It's locally, 1000 Packer, GID 1000. So I show here the root shell, the sweet bit. I launch the root shell, and I'm not a Packer. I'm a privileged user. Of course, in Docker, you can raise the privilege level. You can add a disk and go to root. Docker group is almost a root. If you launch command in Docker, it calls a Docker daemon, a container D, container shim, run C, and everything is executed under root. There is no discrete access by default. How can we correct it? Now, sudo without password, just to save time. I go to daemon GSO, call remapping of the view. Who knows what is remapping? When widths shift for a certain interval, from 0 to 1000, we shift them with a certain interval, and then you cannot use root 0. I run it again with a bad container, with a bad script, and let's see what happens. Also at 3 a.m., rather slow, it's okay. I used to redo it several times. I launched it, and now, after changing the daemon, I do the same root shell, and I check ID. I'm a packer, I am not a root. So we corrected a very simple vulnerability. Actually, DevSecOps should go on and look deeper and deeper for other methods and solutions. For example, remapping with versus rootless, and remapping with limitation. For example, it can affect other features and functions. It can help you make a swarm cluster. The containers under root cannot be run, but rootless containers have a lot of limitations here, and somewhere in the middle you can say that overlay networks are not going to work, and as a result you are not going to raise your cluster. In Podman, it's either Podman or Kubernetes or OpenShift. There is no cluster mode because of that particular reason. We have a very nice book, Container Security. I saw Lisa Rice. I saw her at a conference. I recommend this book. It's translated into Russian. Security of containers, container security, and she said, look at CIS benchmarks developed by security people, CIS Docker benchmarks for Docker, for Kubernetes, for Linux, for different products. And it's written in a very nice way. The language is very easy. I read it and I do understand it. Even free utilities, for example, Docker benchmark security, it checks how secure is your Docker with your containers, and what kind of checks you pass, and how many points you get.
Okay, but not all advice is equally useful. For example, the advice is use live restore, and who knows what live restore is in Docker? What do you know about it? Yes, that's close to that. When you update a version of Docker and the container is still up, no, it's a bit different. If you run a container and you stop the Docker daemon, for example, for an update, and the container keeps working without the daemon there. But with such a feature, you won't be able to do clusterization. An orchestration would suffer if there's a container out there without an orchestrator. And if you Google, you can see that live restore in swarm mode would not work. And so after we dug into the guts, we've got to understand the fears and the risks, what we have to fight against. And today, I heard in other presentations, and this is a great track that we are having, that there can be different attacks, there could be vulnerabilities in dependencies, there could be substitution of images. I don't know, maybe you want to transfer images through HTTP and suddenly you get a man in the middle. After you have understanding of those fears and risks, there's an understanding of what you can improve. You can improve your host, you can improve your runtime, you can improve your images, you can improve the process of assembly, the containers themselves. And again, you can check these CIS Debian recommendations. Here are some of the recommendations how you can improve, reinforce the Docker. You could do separate mounting, you can use audits, you can revise your access rights. And here's an example for you. It's important to inspect the code. It's important to do code reviews, SAST, DAST, or at least you want to start doing SAST, to inspect your code, to write services in the right way, so that they were OWASP compliant. You can reinforce your images. For example, you may want not to use root or nobody. And by the way, if you use root and nobody, you can get into each other's memory, but you can't do that in a container. And you want to use copy instead of add, etc. Use distroless, minimal images. Those who use Java, you can either do Alpine or distroless, but I only saw distroless for Java from Google. Here's a screenshot that shows the Harbor repository, and here you have an open source trivia scanner, and here are some vulnerabilities that you want to fix in a timely manner. Here I'm addressing a vulnerability in a transient library. This is on Java, so if someone else does Java, here's what it looks like. And I work until the time that I get this, that there's no vulnerability. By the way, I tested the same code with different JDKs. And I used the JDK because not all vendors provide a GRE. And the Bellsoft, this is the Russian implementation of Java, demonstrated the best performance, and it's not an advertising for Bellsoft, it's just that their products work so well. This is the same code, the same image, but in one image you can see that there are 12 vulnerabilities, the other one has 0 vulnerabilities. How is that possible? What are you saying over there? No, I mean, the code is the same, the code base is the same. No, it's not that. Okay, that's Java with JDK. Do we have Java people in the room after all? Okay, starting from recently in the Spring framework, you can do native images. You can compile Java in binaries. Previously, you couldn't, but now you can. So one is binary, the other is JR file. The point is that in the binary, you can't see those vulnerabilities. So to detect those vulnerabilities, you want to attach the source file. We can reinforce the assembly, the build. We can use plugins. Or now we have this build kits that you can use to make builds. You can scan for vulnerabilities. You want to strengthen the repository, and it's important to do regular image scanning. Look, here we have two images, and how are they different? One has 58 vulnerabilities, the other one has 56. What could the difference be? Data scanning. It's the same image, but the other one was scanned later, and you have two more vulnerabilities. Okay, you've got your CI, you've got your deploy, and in a month's time you have two more vulnerabilities. So you've got to scan your repository on a regular basis. The next solution is strengthen containers. Quite banal pieces of advice. There are some tools now to monitor runtime anomalies. There's the Falco tool that I want to look at. I haven't had an opportunity yet. And there's another area that is being actively developed for monitoring this. Lisa Rice, that I mentioned, she wrote a book on eBPF. If you want to really dig into the guts of Linux, I recommend this. You can strengthen your delivery. You can use HTTPS only or do admission control. You can strengthen the cluster. You can do some further improvements. You can look at AppArmor. You can do app profiling. You can do a lot of things, but you may end up with this. Ideal and never. That is why Season 3, compromise. You've got to do things incrementally. So if you have talked to your operations and security, you want to be able to compromise to find some point of contact. For example, security may say, okay, Docker it is, but let's set up a separate VLAN for it, or you can terminate with Nginx, or you can use a jump box. Or they would say that some services should not be in the Docker until the time that we really look at it, transactional, for example. So you've got to compromise. You've got to do things one step at a time. And then there are other steps when you might want and dig deeper, so to say, when the level of maturity increases, when you can standardize and do research, and you can use many other hipster-type things that you can look at. gvisor from Google, that is something that is part Docker, part runtime. And it would be safer than Docker, arguably, but there's a Firecracker from Amazon, but I don't have any people that I know who use that. But in Amazon, there are these virtual machines that can be started up in milliseconds, in a very short time. Unikernel VM was an interesting project, but last time I googled it, seems to be no longer there. That's when you do a code in an operating system. Whatever image you use, there's a lot of things that are redundant or not needed. but I haven't seen that there was a lot of developments to this idea. There are many other repositories on the internet, awesome containers, awesome other things on GitHub. You can check out what people are doing for you to have a broader knowledge. Okay, conclusions. So we've got to understand the risks and vulnerabilities, build a multi-layer security, minimum privileges, reduce the surface of attack. Conclusions continued. Let's not be afraid of going into security. Let's not be afraid of going into guts. The more that you do that, the better you develop your expertise. You've got to develop your soft skills. You've got to develop your partners or people who are on your side, and remember to develop and learn new things. Okay, that's it. And now I'll do the same as Marvel does when they say the end and then the movie goes on. Okay, there are some goodies here that I have. And I don't think if you really want to make your snapshots, because the presentations will be, the slides will be available. And there's this number 3. This is not as good as Liz Rice, but you might want to check it out as well. There's the new podcast. That's Victor Verbitsky, Pavel Finkelstein, and myself. We discussed the Cisco standard. There's an article on with a review of those hipster technologies on Hubber, quite a good one. And for those who look into Linux, there's this Cockpit project that does a visualization for Linux, and it's got plugins, quite cool. Some useful reports, and there's a good book when you implement something. Especially in enterprise, there's this book called Accelerate. They look at IT from various angles, but it's more of a high level. And those people also do reports called State of DevOps, quite a useful one. I recommend that you take a look at it. The CIS table. And I guess this track that we are having today should be one of the goodies, because there were so many presentations. eBPF and ChatGPT. Clearly, this is something that is still under development, but in a parallel track there was a presentation on how this could be used. And I liked the phrase that in the future, neural networks will not replace people, but a person with a neural network would replace the person without a neural network. And further good is there is this TV series called The Boys. This is myself in social networks. This is how I look in my dreams. And finally, you can use this QR code to rate the presentations. There have been quite a few of great presentations today, and I recommend that you go there and give your likes to the speakers. And that's it. This is really the end of my presentation, and you're welcome to ask your questions, and I will be giving prizes. Okay, I've got 3 bags, and on to your questions. So where is this question coming from? I'm here. No, not there, here. Can you please stand up? Okay. Regarding the audits, there's a question that still the division between the host system and the container is not implemented, and that makes working with events or incidents more difficult. That's why the security people may be against. Yes, I agree, but it's just a tool there. The question continues. There are some third-party solutions that have different approaches, but the main problem is that Audit D is not ready. And there's another idea that eBPF would save us all. Answer: well, probably it is too early. And I guess we should be looking for tools. The idea is that we've got to have an audit of some sort. Right. So what I'm saying is that audit D is sort of not the right solution. Yes, let's take this offline. I'm happy to discuss that. Okay, further questions?
Спасибо за доклад.
Thank you for your presentation. In your understanding, who's responsible for the security of images? Is it DevOps or DevSecOps? A great question. Okay, first, there's a goodie about it. There's a report by a presentation by Laszlo Dovner. You want to look at it, and I would answer that it's everyone's responsibility. Security people, in my understanding, should make this process easier for developers. They should provide the tools for the developers to address vulnerabilities. That's my view. I can see a lot of hands over there. Why don't you ask your questions together as a choir? Thank you for the presentation. Regarding the stack requirements for containerization that were published last year, have you been able to implement anything? And as a consequence, the integrity control in Docker, security guys would ask how is integrity control in Docker is implemented. Answer: I don't know. I haven't checked the stack requirements. What about integrity control? I haven't checked that out either. But I guess you want to check hash as a minimum. Thank you for the presentation. I'm here. I heard that in cryptography, there's an issue when secrets are stored in a container, such as keys, and that there should be links to keys. The number of keys would be calculated. So when we copy a container, there must be some counters implemented. Sorry, what are you talking about? Are you talking about containers in runtime? Yes, and there might be some secret information, some sensitive information. Did you add any counters to count the number of keys when copying images? Answer: I haven't heard about image copying. You mean you have a container in runtime, and when you scale it? Yes. No, I don't know much about it. But you can investigate anomalies, and I told you that there are some tools that I wanted to look at that inspect anomalies, and one of the tools I want to try out is Falco. Next question. And my next question is about the scaling of images and random sequences. That those pseudo-random sequences might coincide, and you might have issues. Thank you. I haven't tried that. The question seems to be a little too specific for me. Yes. Hello. I'm here. The logging that we get from hosts, should we find behind the DLS, or should we do it the old way? You want to make sure that it's secure. So does that mean that logs should be hidden behind the DLS? Well, it depends on your requirements. You've got to make sure that they don't leak away. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. Why, when I look at courses about Docker or Docker for Dummies, they always say that Docker is secure, and the security guys say that it's not secure? Answer: well, nothing is secure. You've got to look from various angles. There's no silver bullet. You've got to assess risks, or you've got to accept a compromise. It just never happens that, you know, something is 100% secure. Perhaps just for the dummies. A Docker garden. Thank you for the presentation. Cool one. Can you please share your experience of image scanning in SDI pipeline? Maybe you have a flow that you could share. Yes, I will, but maybe offline as well. Meanwhile, we're trying Harbor and with Trivi. Do you use ignore files in Trivi? Trivi has ignore files. And you can integrate Trivi and Defect Dojo. And if there are some vulnerabilities that are out of scope or not verify the first policy, yes, you can do that. You can play with settings. And it not only can scan images, but it also can scan files and other entities. Good evening. When using CI/CD in Docker, we would transfer variables to store keys. And with the Docker inspector, those variables can be seen. Can this be hidden? And what is the best method of using secrets in Docker? Well, secrets, sensitive things, have to be stored in the inbuilt storage. And if you use the storage to a Docker, there is no get. You cannot get it out. The daemon includes it into the runtime at the very last instance. And as the lady previously mentioned, they're only available in runtime. And if there are any secret variables, you want to put them there. Otherwise, you can use a simple inspector to identify them. Thank you for the presentation. Yes, I can see that. Finally, I got hold of the microphone. A vulnerability scan and combating variables, combating vulnerabilities. What you talked about for the most part of your presentation, which way should we look? Well, you should look at in various areas. It's a big topic. To assess vulnerabilities in a proper way, you want to look at the infrastructure, you want to look at the reliability of your runtime, you want to look at the correctness of your services. It's a big scope, and it's good if you don't do that on your own, but you talk to other people as well. It's quite a broad topic. It depends on what matters most at the moment. Question: you said that the security guys say that you don't want to put any apps or certain apps into the Docker. How can we overcome that? What arguments can we provide to migrate those into the Docker? Well, very straightforward. First of all, you want to go one step at a time. Is it 2 more questions or 2 more minutes? Okay, 2 more minutes. Yes. So you want to make it in small steps. If you're able to put some less critical services into Docker and you're able to demonstrate to security guys that it works, that it's possible to scan images not when you deploy, but before, that this helps improve reliability. A very simple case: when you deploy something to production, and then it turns out that in your server you have 20 servers and the Linux is vulnerable. And fixing that would be difficult and quite lengthy. But with Docker, you can fix the base version and address that vulnerability very quickly. And cases are the best proof. When I implemented that where I work, I built a big table and I looked at various cases in terms of operations, in terms of security, and I tried to really show what affects what and what security problems could be there. If you have services and it takes all the memory, then that would affect the host and customers would be affected. So you've got to have the skill to really demonstrate that. Maybe one last question? Thank you for the great presentation, for the great way of presenting it. You said that with trivia, you could hide dependencies in an archive. Is there something else? Any other life hacks that can be used to hide the dependencies? You've got to look at various scanning tools. You've got to understand what you scan. As I showed that if you don't understand what you scan, you may end up with the message that there are no vulnerabilities. No, but question, how do you protect yourself against some more sophisticated things? Answer, only experience can help you with that. Okay, so I will now award the prizes. I will give one to the lady at the back who talked about scaling and secrets in runtime. Congratulations. Okay, where do I give the second one? Everyone is pointing to themselves. What was your question? I don't remember the question. What was it about? Okay, we'll chat with you separately. I'll give the second one to this guy who talked about the audits. And we have some stickers, but it's up to you to come up here and pick them. Oh yes, there's a prize for one more question. And I think I want to give it to the guy here who asked about how to sell Docker to security guys. Was that you? Oh, that was you. Okay. You get the third prize. Okay, grab the stickers and have a very good evening.